Our speaker today is not me, it's Stephen Ramnani, Dr. Stephen Ramnani. She normally has eye gaze technology that allows her to click blocks of text and then click on the next one. Instead, you've got an inferior solution, me. The technology hasn't worked. Her journey away from tinnitus and to her calm life that she has now, right? Anyway, remember, all of this is Sapna talking, not me. Hello, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to thank James and other members of the CLH committee for allowing me to give this talk today. It's a huge honour to present some of my research on automatic writing, which I've been practicing for about 10 years. As humanists, you'd agree it's a good thing to be sceptical about practices that are associated with paranormal phenomena. However, there is a practice that has its roots in science and psychology, but has been stained by supernaturalists, and as a result is rejected and almost forgotten by science. During this talk, I'll describe automatic writing from a scientific and psychological perspective, moving on to the reasons that automatic writing was hijacked by a supernaturalist and therefore rejected by the scientific community. I'll explain how automatic writing is actually a way of the subconscious expressing itself, and how it's a powerful method of recovering from emotional trauma like PTSD. Then the talk will move on to the conclusion and also give you an opportunity to try automatic writing yourself. I'm sure some of you may have found yourselves doodling either when you're watching TV or in conversation with someone. You may have been slightly surprised at what you had produced. This is because you were distracted at a conscious level, giving free rein to the subconscious to express itself. This is also how the subconscious produces automatic writing. It is hot, isn't it? So, this is a book cover of Conversations with God. In another example, during a Larry King interview, Walsh explained how the books came to be. During a difficult time in his life, he wrote a letter to God regarding his worries about why he was not successful. Once he'd written his questions down, he appeared to hear a voice saying, "Do you really want an answer to all these questions, or are you just venting?" Despite not seeing anyone when he turned around, Walsh felt as though solutions to his inquiries were forming in his head, and he made the decision to put them in writing. The novels, Conversations with God, were born out of the subsequent automatic writing. So, Mrs. Thomas Everett was one of the first private mediums in England to produce automated writing, claiming she was communicating with the dead. In 1855, she began to hold seances, but went relatively unknown to the public until 1867. I discovered that the method of automatic writing is unfortunately also associated with the supernatural, which may be why it's not used in clinical psychological practice. Even today, there's a misconception that we can communicate with those that have passed away using automatic writing, bringing false comfort to those who are grieving. So this is how even today automatic writing is hijacked by pseudo-science. However, in the Victorian era, when belief in the supernatural was prevalent, the so-called mediums would either use Ouija boards or write automatically. Ouija boards, do you remember those? What happened to them? They've disappeared. In reality, this process was the subconscious coming through to write automatically and had no connection to the supernatural or communicating with the dead. Even so, scientists have distanced themselves greatly from automatic writing because of its association with the occult. It's a shame that such a powerful psychological tool was disregarded as pseudo-science. However, Boris Cecilius, a Ukrainian-American psychologist, physician, psychiatrist, and philosopher of education in the 1900s, was curious about hypnotic states. He was also interested in automatic writing from a scientific and psychological perspective. Thus, he took an experimental approach to mental processes. So he's put people in two categories: those who were completely unaware of their act of writing, and those who knew about what they were doing, but did not associate their writing with themselves. Sidis outlined the conditions for automatic writing. He said, to induce the first stages of automatic writing, the same conditions are requisite as those of normal suggestibility. The subject started his first lesson in automatic writing must strongly concentrate his attention on some letter, figure or word. He must distract his attention from what's going on in his hand. He must be in a monotonous environment. He mustn't be disturbed by a variety of incoming sense impressions. He must keep quiet, thus limiting his voluntary movements. His field of consciousness must be contracted. No other ideas but the requisite ones should be present in the mind. And if other ideas and images do enter his mind, they must be inhibited. Even though automatic writing was developed in the 19th century, it perfectly captures all I experience when I practice it, all Sapna experience when I practice it. The Scientific American magazine from 1886 describes the planchette for automatic writing as a heart-shaped piece of board mounted upon 3 supports. It's 7 inches from the depression in the base at the heart of its apex and 7 inches measured across its widest part. 2 of the supports are legs of wood or brass, terminating in pentagram wheels or casters, usually of iron, bone or hard rubber. The 3rd support is a pencil thrust through a socket at the apex of the heart. This encouraged an experimental and open-minded approach to automatic writing, which may have discouraged pseudo-science from hijacking this practice. Due to this method, skeptics need to wait for more conclusive evidence, while explaining the boundary between the conscious and the subconscious may not be clear-cut. It was thought that the right hemisphere of the brain could be responsible for the way automatic writing is produced. I make a similar assumption in my book, The Returning Silence. Myers recognised early on that automatic writing was a way for the subconscious to express itself. He said, "In our ignorance, we simply know that certain complex facts, like an intelligent reply to a question, depend upon 2 things which we believe associated: superior cerebral mechanism and a phenomenon which we call an effective consciousness. We find the same characteristics in the so-called subconscious phenomena, and we must suppose back to them in the same 2 conditions." Automatic writing was finally breaking away from the notion that it was only associated with the supernatural. Finally, it had the potential to have real recognition in the scientific community. Alfred Binet, a French psychologist, described an experiment that he undertook in 1889. He said, "We put a pen into the anaesthetic hand and we make it write a word. Left to itself, the hand preserves its attitude and at the expiration of a short space of time, repeats the word, often 5 or 10 times. Having arrived at this fact, we again seize the anaesthetic hand and cause it to write some familiar word, for example, the patient's own name. But in so doing, we intentionally commit an error in spelling. In its turn, the anaesthetic hand repeats the word, but oddly enough, the hand betrays a momentary hesitation when it reaches the letter at which the error in orthography was committed. If a superfluous letter happens to have been added, sometimes the hand will hesitatingly rewrite the name along with the supplementary letter. Again, it will retrace only part of the letter in question, and again, finally, entirely suppress it. This may have been the first indication that automatic writing was not under the conscious control of the writer. Binet, like Janet, assumed that writing must have come from the subconscious, since the correction of the spelling mistake could only have occurred by the process of thought. Some similar experiments by Binet later proved the same. In one experiment, Binet placed a paper with writing at such a distance that it was too far for the subject to read. He asked the subject to write what she thought was written, which she did accurately. This demonstrated that a greater visual acuity of the second consciousness could be revealed, said Binet, through automatic writing. Binet concluded the subconscious picked up the message, even though it's too far away for the conscious to register. Binet concluded that this was evidence of a double consciousness, consciousness and subconsciousness, which he first discovered in hysterical patients, but which were also prevalent in normal subjects. He concluded that automatic writing is one proof of this, amongst many others. So now we move on to Sapna's first experiences of automatic writing. After reading Anita Mull's book, Automatic Writing, I tried writing automatically, and my tinnitus dramatically reduced with immediacy. It was another exciting discovery. It was the first time I had eczema, and I thought there might be a correlation between eczema and automatic writing. I wanted to ensure this was not by chance, but the same happened the next day when I wrote automatically. After investigation, I discovered the eczema resulted from emotional stress, which was a positive sign since it had strongly suggested the automatic writing had brought up painful and difficult emotional memories, which was crucial to recovering from tinnitus. Even though the eczema was bad initially, I found the tinnitus would either reduce or disappear for the day. Since eczema was far easier to deal with than tinnitus, I found myself motivated to continue automatic writing while developing this technique. Through the daily practice of automatic writing, the conscious witness learns the articulation of the subconscious without influencing it. This has proved a vital part of my daily practice in allowing memories, thoughts, feelings and emotions that were once out of bounds to my conscious self to surface consciously. The first few times after undertaking an automatic writing session, I often felt mentally exhausted and felt the need to sleep or at least rest. This is because powerful emotions from the subconscious were surfacing and being acknowledged. Gradually this became less tiring, and I can now continue daily life while being able to write automatically. The ideal time to write automatically. At first I practiced writing automatically at the same time each day so that my subconscious became accustomed to revealing itself daily. The environment in which I wrote was usually quiet, which is essential during this process. I ensured that I was not interrupted, so my phone was silent, and I sometimes asked others not to disturb me for the next hour. This reduced potential distractions so the conscious and the subconscious know not to be concerned, and this time was dedicated to the subconscious expressing itself. Eventually I could practice automatic writing whenever it suited my schedule, which worked well. However, I discovered that automatic writing works best at the end of the day. The subconscious at this time informs the conscious about what it fails to fully or partly acknowledge in daily life. This also prevents emotions from being carried over to the next day, making dreams less vivid and improving sleep. When you first practice automatic writing, you may prefer to write in the morning, since it's likely to reduce tinnitus, providing relief for the rest of the day. Since I'm a private person, one day I felt unsure about whether I should reveal so much of my life in the Returning Silence book, which is semi-autobiographical. The following automatic writing is where the subconscious reflects on this, giving me a definite answer. My subconscious refers to me as Sophia, which is a name that it has given me because Sophia means wisdom. I've added punctuation in the automatic writing below to make it easier to read. So instead of me reading it out, I'm going to assume you can all read, and I'll be quiet. Jack points out that the words are not from me, but have been produced by him. This is evidence that the subconscious has the ability not only to reflect on my emotions, but also on its relationship with me as a conscious being. We experience many events during the day that has an emotional impact on us, big or small. As I became used to acknowledging how I emotionally felt from moment to moment, it was possible to keep the tinnitus at bay. I still undertake automatic writing before sleep. Sometimes my subconscious has a lot to say, while at other times it does not. I found that doing automatic writing at this time of day allows my conscious to catch up with the subconscious, and for the subconscious to inform and advise the conscious about its perspective on the day's events, and to provide suggestions on solving dilemmas and problems. Since the subconscious is constantly witnessing all that I experience, this is ideal for it to provide an informed opinion from an emotional perspective, which is something I may not have fully acknowledged consciously. This method of daily communication, as well as dreaming, prevents the build-up of emotions in the subconscious, which, as we know, if left unchecked, could lead to the tinnitus returning. So, I see my subconscious as a friend who keeps me safe daily and has my best interests at heart. This is because the subconscious is not motivated by the ego or the need to fulfill unrealistic wishes that are not good for me, nor is it motivated by selfishness, which is why it is pure. I encourage readers to undertake daily automatic writing if possible. So again, this is Sapna talking here. I'm unable to use my hands to write, so before I had a specialised computer, I dictated what I wanted to write to my personal assistant. The words appeared on the monitor, and I checked to see if she had typed correctly. The computer screen was blank, the writing window was made smaller, so a few words were visible at a time, so that the conscious did not complete the thoughts expressed by the subconscious by deriving meaning from the words already typed. Doing so helped to avoid distractions. No matter how small, distraction can influence the writing, which must be avoided at all costs, since the subconscious can easily create a barrier. For those who can use their hands, I recommend you use a more conventional method of writing with paper and pen. During this process, ensure the paper is hidden from your view and the pen is in contact with the paper at all times. The pen and paper may not be in contact when you're concentrating on writing automatically. On my first attempt, I was not sure what, if anything, would come out, but something did emerge. Having never written poetry before, I was surprised when the automatic writing came out in rhyme. Since then, the writing has become stronger and deeper in content. I often read back a piece of writing that I do not understand. The overriding aspect of this work is to allow the subconscious to express itself in any way it wishes. An advantage of automatic writing can be to release pent-up emotions by expressing internal emotional conflicts and bringing up forgotten memories and their emotional associations. I often use the method of roads and roundabouts, which I will explain later in the presentation, without necessarily writing down anything to ask the subconscious to advise on what I need to do when I'm unsure at a conscious level. The advice and insight from the subconscious is like having an extremely close friend who's always available and has my best interests at heart, knows me better than I know myself at a conscious level. According to what I've read, not everyone is able to undertake automatic writing, though for some people can after practice, while others can perform this straight away. Fortunately, I fall into the latter category, hugely benefiting my mental health. Often I do not recognise the writing in front of me, since it feels like it's been written by another person. This is why automatic writing was so appealing to mediums and supernaturalists, even though the method is anything but supernatural. Stephen Gilligan, a student of Milton Erickson, who was a renowned hypnotherapist, suggests that trance is, and I quote, natural and integral to consciousness, not artificial. In this naturalistic view, trance occurs whenever identity is destabled, as a means by which identity can be deconstructed and constructed. End of quote. Right. Fighting dragon. Acknowledging inner conflict. Sometimes in automatic writing, a dialogue between two or more characters may emerge. These characters are extensions of our personalities, like in our dreams. By allowing these characters freedom to express themselves, it's possible to understand the conflict within the subconscious, which provides insight to the origins of my trauma. This is why the exploration of my inner conflict proved to be invaluable in my recovery. Sometimes the characters that emerge are unpleasant and violent in the way they express themselves. Why this may be stressful in the moment is vital for these parts of me to be heard and acknowledged. This is Sapna and the dog. Lovely photo, isn't it? At other times, characters that are loving and caring towards me may also express their views. In my experience, if parts of me are left unheard and not acknowledged, this will manifest as tinnitus. When unpleasant characters emerge in my writing, I'm not frightened by this process, since they're the formations of past emotional experiences that have not been processed or consciously acknowledged. Even though this is often emotionally traumatic, I'm aware that different characters cannot harm me in any way. Instead, they're desperate to be recognised by my conscious. These characters, and the pleasant ones, can be viewed as teachers with emotional knowledge of my history. The emotional aspects of my past need to be explored with curiosity, compassion, and appropriate fierceness. When working with different aspects of our psyche, the late New Zealander psychologist David Grove stressed the importance of getting them to confess their strengths, which is why I listened to them respectfully. The example below is the automatic writing that I did when I first began using this technique, which is why punctuation is used. Later, I found that punctuation hindered automatic writing because it engaged with the conscious. The subsequent automatic writing without punctuation proved to be more fluid and came out easier. I had written automatically previously just by accident. Upon reading Muell's book, I had better success in automatic writing. but with some conscious interference. I thought it would be amazing to channel all that noise into words that my subconscious could express whenever it wanted. As I listened to my tinnitus, I thought about this issue for a while. I needed a metaphor to remind the subconscious that tinnitus was not the only way it had to express itself. By definition, this created more than a single option. This led me to consider the kind of metaphor that had multiple options, which the subconscious could use to channel emotions to express themselves in words, not noise. It was an interesting and unusual problem, not something someone would think about after eating their evening meal. But I did one night. The automatic writing I had done so far made me consider how to refine this technique. I thought the metaphor of a roundabout with its multiple options provides the subconscious with the ability to choose its direction. I was amazed when I tried the roads and roundabout exercise, since the automatic writing came out. Immediately the tinnitus went down. This was by chance. I performed this exercise again, had the same result. I felt excited about this discovery but couldn't share it with anyone except my then hypnotherapist. I was aware of how insignificant it was to other people, but how imperative it was to me. That night I made some notes about this little experiment. My nephew came over the following weekend, and as we were having fun in the garden, I asked him to try it too. As I described this exercise to him, he was astonished to come up with a rhyme appropriate for his young age, which could indicate the roads and roundabouts exercise, which I'll outline later, could be done by others as well. When I first practiced automatic writing, I found the conscious would have something to say in the writing. This was less than ideal in treating tinnitus, since it did not reduce tinnitus by much. Then I came up with the roads and roundabout exercise, preventing conscious expression from influencing the writing. It's like wanting to hear the thoughts of one twin, only to find their sibling thoughts as well. Distracting the conscious twin allows the subconscious twin to speak without interruption. Automatic writing is best undertaken when the conscious is distracted, since this is the domain of the subconscious. The process of automatic writing stops as soon as my conscious engages with this process. This is why the roads and roundabouts exercise is so effective. Even though this exercise is mechanical or habit-like, particularly suitable for the conscious way of working, the different roundabout exits may remind the subconscious that there are multiple directions and options to take. Car and a brick wall. Tinnitus is like the driver of the car driving to a dead end. This is why a roundabout was a suitable metaphor, since it was a reminder the subconscious could take several directions or options. It also reminded the subconscious it had the ability to choose where it wanted to go. It now takes over. I imagine this is how the subconscious breaks through the barrier of conscious. Though this, the tinnitus is channeled into expressing itself through automatic writing, which is ideal, since tinnitus results from unexpressed emotions within the subconscious. Next slide. Going into the roads and roundabouts exercise. Automatic writing, with automatic writing, I imagine I'm in a car driving on a quiet and empty road. There are green fields on either side, and I see the road ahead on a beautiful, sunny, calm day, and there are no distractions. As I look into the distance, I see the first roundabout with 3 exits going in different directions. I see the roundabout coming nearer and nearer, and as I approach it, I take 2 cycles of inhalation and exhalation. When I enter the roundabout, I acknowledge the space between when I entered and where I entered, and the approaching exit with 2 inhales and 2 exhales, accompanied by thinking about the number 1 with every inhale. This number is arbitrary and can efficiently work with any number or letter of the alphabet. I also acknowledge the exit itself by thinking about the number 1, while taking 2 cycles of inhaling and exhaling. The point of this is to add another layer of conscious engagement. Conscious is fully occupied at multiple levels, preventing it from distracting the subconscious. During this process, if you find words or some thoughts enter the conscious, think about the number 1000 or another arbitrary word or word with 2 syllables. Adding an extra syllable may provide a better seal to prevent the conscious from expressing itself. I repeat this cycle of breaths and engage the conscious with every exit in the space between them until I return to just before where I entered the roundabout. I go past my original entrance without going past the first exit and remain somewhere between the two. Words come into my mind from the subconscious. This is automatic writing. I stop imagining this scene to write these words. Once the automatic writing has stopped, I repeat the same process using the inhalation and exhalation technique. I was able to do this exercise faster within 20 seconds because the conscious is occupied, thereby preventing it from interfering with the subconscious. There's a delicate balance where the danger of doing this exercise too fast meant I would miss a breath, forget to acknowledge an exit, or engage with the arbitrary number, whereas engaging too slowly would allow the conscious to express itself. Therefore, I recommend you find your own pace while avoiding the above. It's not necessary to imagine the roundabout vividly, but you need to get some sense of it being there. With practice and preparation, automatic writing can become smooth and quick. Sometimes when we write automatically, we might forget the last few words that come out. You must then only write down the words you're sure of and repeat the roads and roundabout exercise once again. Automatic writing should start from where you left off, ensuring the automatic writing goes in the direction intended by the subconscious and not the conscious. Typically, trauma may create a barrier between the subconscious and the conscious, as the conscious may be reluctant to allow fearful emotions and memories to come up to its level and be acknowledged. The robustness of the roads and roundabouts exercise ensures the conscious is prevented from expressing itself, which is crucial when recovering from tinnitus. This is achieved by distracting the conscious with inhalation and exhalation, which also serves as a reminder to the subconscious that there are several directions from which to choose. While the conscious is distracted, the subconscious is free to take any exit it wants, hence automatic writing. Using this method guarantees pure subconscious expression, bypassing the conscious. Okay. I've got to have a bit of water, excuse me. Try. So we've got the left and right hemispheres of the brain and their relationship to the subconscious. The left hemisphere of the brain is concerned with coherence, i.e. things making logical sense. For example, we understand that 1 + 1 is 2. However, the flaw is that we can only make as much sense as our database allows. The price of too much logic devoid of emotion is emotional emptiness. This could have been why the tinnitus in my left ear was associated with the right hemisphere, which concerns itself with emotional acknowledgement and feeling. In a pilot study by R.R.A. Coles in 1984, who was the Deputy Director and Coordinator of Clinical Studies at the MRC Institute of Hearing Research at the University of Nottingham, he found those with tinnitus are more likely to experience it in their left ear. The left hemisphere may have suppressed the right, albeit metaphorically. This may be why roads and roundabouts exercise works clockwise, but not anti-clockwise. Stephen Gilligan supports this point by saying that the left hemisphere can, and too often does, ignore the right and act as if its own maps are the only realities that exist. This can be disastrous as the functionally isolated left hemisphere has glaring weaknesses. For example, it only has partial and indirect experience of the body, and thus the natural world. It represents only its own position, both visually and cognitively, and it prefers non-living things over living presences. End of quote. Is everyone else hot, or is this just me?
It's just you.
Just me. You hot? The left ear, or the connection from the left ear, connects to the right hemisphere, which is more about creativity and emotion. It is not involved in cognitive function or lateral thinking. Going clockwise rather than anti-clockwise around the roundabout may prevent the left hemisphere from temporarily functioning, implying that the automatic writing that comes out must be from the right hemisphere associated with emotion. It suggests the lateral and logical part of the brain is more assertive than the emotional part, but not in the case of automatic writing. This is accurate in its description of the way tinnitus made me react due to my emotions being out of bounds in the subconscious. I would respond, sorry, I haven't read that right. This is accurate in its description of the way tinnitus made me react due to my emotions being out of bounds and in the subconscious. I would respond to a highly emotional situations with control and logic while not being able to access and feel emotions, even when there was a need for their involvement. This may be because while the emotional reaction to trauma is kept hidden in the subconscious, the conscious creates a barrier between itself and the subconscious to protect itself from the trauma of the past in the moment. While this is a temporary mechanism for most people, if this continues to happen over a long period, the barrier endures. The purpose of the roundabout is to stop the conscious from temporarily functioning when we undertake the cycle of breaths by distracting it. This is further encouraged when we go round the roundabout anti-clockwise, temporarily stopping the conscious from functioning. When we've gone round the roundabout once, this reminds the subconscious that there are several exits from which to choose. At this point, when we stop the exercise, the conscious does not know which exit the subconscious has chosen. However, this is of no consequence since the subsequent automatic writing is from the direct decision the subconscious made. Sorry, made below the level of conscious awareness. So, in conclusion, even though automatic writing unfortunately has its history associated with the supernatural and the occult, and while its reputation has been stained by mediums and supernaturalists claiming to be a way of talking to the dead, in fact what my research has demonstrated is that automatic writing is a way of subconscious expressing itself, which is valuable in the way we can understand and connect with ourselves at a deep subconscious emotional level. Thank you for listening.